Hey guys, it's your boy that guy. How to coding, back with another installment. It's been a great week this week. I got to make a video after rip my other video. Rest in pieces. My previous video that had no audio. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to save it. I kind of anticipate doing like a voiceover on top of it, but I don't like that style of video. I prefer the live coding sessions. It's much more informative because you get to hear the reasons why people do what they do. There aren't always good reasons, but you get to hear them. So I think I did a video like it was last weekend. Was it last weekend? When was it? Anyways, I did a video like not a month ago, so it's going like amazingly, swimmingly. So wait, while I speak, I want my pretty stars to be visible, right? So this is my chit for this thing. I had such a nightmare committing this code because for some reason chit doesn't like it when you have multiple accounts configured on these devices, on your machines. You have to use this thing called chit manager that switches out your config for you. All this insanity, but I mean, we are going. It is happening. As you can see, I've got a couple of other stuff open, but this is the thing that we care about. I just want to always have you see my amazing looking star things. It's like I'm so proud of my star things. Pink stars are falling in lines. So without much more talking about random garbage, let's dive into it. I think the last time we got ourselves a paint loop, let's just run it and see what it does. We got ourselves a render loop and we were able to we were scaling the window and everything was looking good, right? I think this time we wanted to make sure that we don't let the screen go down beyond a certain size, I think, because you can currently do, yeah, we want to tell this thing you can only go down this far, right? And then maybe start handling input or something. I want a brush component that okay, here's what's up. Right now, this video, we'll do the resizing logic here so that this can't resize down further beyond this, like certain size. Then we will, there's like a scaling bug somewhere that I don't know if you can see it, but this is like a weird scaling bug. There's a certain screen, there we go, there's a certain screen size that causes, I think it's floating point imprecision to happen, that makes this thing just look unpretty. It kind of wobbles when it draws. I think it's saying like it's off by like a tiny fraction. Whatever, we'll get to it. I think for now, first step is figure out how to make this not resize down beyond a certain point, and then we add the ball in, and then we make this paddle red. We're gonna just duplicate that other game we had. I think that's gonna work for us. So what do? I did some reading. If you want to tell this window, hey, you can't go down beyond a certain size, there's this window message you handle. I think it's called WM get min max info. Obviously I need to type case. Huh? And I think min max info LP min max info LP MMI equals, let's just do a reinterpret cost, LP min max info W per M. I think that's it. And then LP MMI min track size dot x equals 320, and then LPMI PT min track size dot y equals to 40, I think you return like 0 or something when you handle this. Let's just check. I think you return 0 when you handle it. But I did the reading and I kind of memorized like two pieces of like key pieces of information. That is, if you, oh my word, it does not like that. It hates what I just did. What is alparam at this point? Oh, is it alparam? Maybe it's alparam. I don't know. I know something gets passed in that lets you know, like, hey, you can tell Windows like this is the minimum size of this thing. It's not all. It's not that. To handle the WM sizing command, what do you do? WM get min max info. Okay, I know it's something, right? It's definitely one of these messages. There's like something that lets you do it. Get min max. Yeah. Alparam is appointed to a min max infrastructure that contains the default. Blah blah blah. If the application processes this message, it should return 0. The minimum tracking size. Blah blah blah. Okay, so return 0. Let's see. So here we handle WinProt, blah blah blah. Case WM get min max info. Min maximum alparam, min track size X is 320, min track size Y is 240, and then return 0 if you handle this. It doesn't really make a difference where you handle it, it just makes a difference what you do with it when you get it. Create window 640 by 480, so the minimum is 320 by 240, that should work. Also, why does this look funny? Like, is this even the thing I'm looking at that's running here? Guys, you need to excuse me. This code looks so funny to me because I've been working on, you know, my gainful employment for a while, and it's a different language, and the formatting is also different in that IDE. So this looks just, it looks so foreign to me now that like, it just doesn't make sense. Why does this look like this? I'm assuming it's because I'm so used to just looking at that. Why is that formatted this poorly? Oh, that's why. I'm so used to looking at that other language, and it's like a special formatting thing, that this just looks so weird to me right now. I'd like to run this code in 64-bit mode. Plickety plow. Let's see. Wait, it's doing the thing. Yay! So again, this is how you do it. You handle this get min max info message, and then you fiddle with these things inside here. You tell it the minimum track size is the minimum width that the window can handle. Minimum track size is a point, an actual point structure. Point structure just has an x and a y coordinate inside of it. So you just set those values, and then you return 0 to tell Windows, hey, I handled this thing. I've provided min max info. There are other fields inside this object. There's the reserved thing, which you don't touch. There's the max size, which is the maximum size that you can drag the window by using the borders. There's the maximum position, which I'm assuming is the maximum position that you can place the window at. There's the minimum track size, which is the minimum size that you can drag the window with its borders, and then the maximum track size. So wait, what are these and that? I'm assuming the track sizes are the dragging. The maximum sizes are just with the clicky buttons, these things here, the restore and whatever maximize button. And then the max position is where can you drag it by the caption, right? We can see that if we look at this thing. Let's look at it. So reserved, oh, there's always a reserved flag, do not use. Max size is the maximum height of the window. The maximized width and maximized height of the window. Max size, is that whether it's maximized or not, or what is it? I'm curious now. Is that the maximum whether you maximize this thing or not? So let's just eyeball this quickly. Let's just try and resize this. Let's trigger that, and we look at LPMMI max size. Oh, look, 1936 by 1096. So this is telling you the potential maximum size. Okay, so it's always a valid value inside this PT max size thing, and then this max position is the position of the left side of the maximized window and the position of the top of the maximized window. So max doesn't mean max as in upper bound. Max actually means maximized. When this thing is maximized, how big will it be and where will the top left corner be? That's all it's telling. Okay, that's what these first two values are. Then the min track size is the minimum tracking width and tracking height of the window. So this is the thing where you are busy grabbing a corner of the window and you're resizing it. This is the tracking the width and the height. We've set this member to our minimum that we accept or that we want to accept, to tell Windows don't let this thing go down beyond a certain size. So that's that. And then the maximum track size is also how far can you stretch this out if you go this way with it. I'm assuming that's all it does. You just returns, you fiddle with these values inside and then you return 0 and that's it. So this is how you do I want this window to only get this big, right? That's it. Or I want this window to only become that small. There you go. You handle this message and then you return 0. Easy enough. The next step is, now that we can stop this thing from going too small, the next step would be I would like for this paddle to be red. I would like to display a ball on the screen. Or we can actually go and copy paste that logic out of JavaScript tutorial number 5, the winning, because it's like it's verbatim, it's the same logic. So let's get the ball and let's get this thing up and running. So where are these things defined? This thing is looking very barren out here. It's first, let's get rid of all these stupid comments. They mean nothing. Global variables, yes, sitting right there in the global, like, in the globality of the file is just sitting there and it's saying here's a global variable. We know what it is. We can see it for ourselves. We know what these are. We know what these are. We know what that's doing here. We got my paint stuff. I want to rename that to, it's not really my paint stuff, it's more like simulation, because this is how you run the simulations. Let's just call it simulation, because the simulation is responsible for everything that happens, right? So all of these things that are happening are just a simulation of a real world game. It's a poor approximation. By no means am I promising you like real world physics or physics simulation. All I'm promising you is a very poor approximation of what this game would play like in an ideal scenario, in an ideal environment where friction was not an object, or friction was not a concern, right? These things all look okay, not too, I can't think of what those were for. Get min max info, and then paint does nothing. Erase background just says yeah sure I got this, but then doesn't actually do anything. WM command just checks if you're closing of a dialog. Okay, and then on timer actually does, you know, simulation, and so the first thing we want to do with the simulation is, oh, it's already named the way we wanted. Oh, this is so nice. You know, I thought of it the last time, so I don't have to think of it now. Thanks, back then me, for thinking of this. All I want to do is call this thing update and throw. In an ideal situation, we would have a way of measuring how much time has actually passed between the previous frame and this frame. in order to have fluid movement. So if some of the frames are rendered late, or if this get tick count and on time are notoriously unreliable on Windows, get tick count has something like a 16 millisecond resolution or something stupid like that, that you cannot get tick counts that are closer than 16 milliseconds apart. So if you did something like, I want to move this ball over here and then do some stuff and then get tick count and then subtract it to ticks to get a time value, you couldn't get any value lower than 16 back in the day. I don't know if that's changed, but I'm always just going to walk around with this knowledge because it's hard earned, hard won knowledge from like 10 years ago when I picked it up and I said, hey, I want to work in this thing. That's how it was. So I'm always just going to know that get tick count is an unreliable method of timing. Luckily, we've got something called Chrono, which is a part of the C++ standard library. It is a chronology or chronological time measuring system. You got multiple clocks defined. You got the high resolution clock, you got the steady clock, you got the system clock. System clock and steady clock are similar, but the steady clock is the default the de facto that you should aim for, and then the high resolution clock is something you should be aiming for if you're doing like complicated things that require absolute precision. Obviously, if you're doing physics simulations, you need really high resolution time values to be able to calculate how many grams or micronewtons of force would be exerted on this object if so much time has passed. But we're not doing that. We are moving a couple of pixels across the screen. We're moving a little paddle and bouncing a ball. It's a very, very straightforward thing we're doing. So we don't need high resolution clocks. We don't need to use get tick count, for instance. It's fine if it's a little bit janky. I think maybe in one of the later series videos we'll deal with I think I'll make it a snippet. I'll give you like a little playlist where you get 15-minute snippets of knowledge that is like, this is how you do pointers in this language, whichever language, and this is how you do something in some language. But for now, we don't need any of that. We just need to be able to say, I have a rectangle and here's a DC, and draw inside that rectangle on that DC. That's all I need. That's all we really need, right? Because of the type of game this is. So one of the interesting things that we need, that I see that we don't have, is we don't have a way to handle input. In the other video that we dealt with, there was an easier way to do it. There was you could just directly query what is the mouse coordinate at this time. But I think in this instance, we don't have something like that. So what I want to do is I want to say, basically, if you're moving the mouse to the left, basically the paddle just needs to kind of track the mouse a little bit. So, or are we going to do the same interface? We're going to say the game is paused, you're going to click to start, you're going to move the mouse cursor around a little bit, and the paddle is going to try and follow the mouse cursor. All it's going to check is the mouse cursor to the left of where the paddle is or to the right of where the paddle is, and then try and follow it along at its own speed. It's not just going to like fly up, it's going to catch up slowly. I think that's going to give the best and most fair gameplay, because if you got like a flicky restaurant playing CSGO, if you're amazing at the game, you got like really good wrist tracking movement. I don't want you to be able to just destroy people. If we make this multiplayer, maybe not. I kind of think I want to make the C++ one multiplayer, because you have access to the Windows sockets and stuff like that. Maybe not, depends. Let's first get through this. So the first thing we need, I need to close that. The first thing we need to do here is get in the header file, get in there, and then start making this all just pretty, right? Yes, perfect. I put some code here. I don't like any of what's going on here. I don't like any of what's going on there, but that's all written. I don't have to care about it. All I need to care is that when I look for this paddle thing, the paddle X and the paddle Y need to move around. So let's I want to say let's create a class for a ball and tell the ball year update. But for the type of game this is, you need to do like a little cost benefit analysis here, right? It's gonna cost us like it's gonna cost us like 2 more hours of coding and talking about it versus just writing like 10 minutes of code, just me shutting up and just writing the code. So I think it would be beneficial to just write the code. So all I want is, first and foremost, I want to say this thing name is simulation. It's not a change that you'll actually it won't get us anything, but what we will get out of this deal is we'll get a ball, right? So the ball with the height can kind of be fixed, right? So let's just fill in these variables quickly, get a ball up on the screen. We need a red brush to be able to ball x equals width over 1 minus 5 pixels, right? I know the operator precedence is this thing and then that thing. I just like to be able to read it as divide by 1 then subtract 5, right? Ball y equals same thing, height divided by 2 and then subtract 5 pixels. It's just to say this thing is 10 pixels wide, but the top left corner is like 5 pixels left and up, because it's gonna, the width is gonna send it over the center line, so we're just centering it, right? Ball width equals 10 pixels. Oh my word, what was that? Ball width equals 10 pixels and ball height equals 10 pixels. I'm not going to worry about resizing it or doing anything special. And then all I want to do is I want to say here's a rectangle, let's call it Q, and it's ball X. Maybe if I just type the whole thing, and then ball Y, and then ball X plus ball width, and ball Y plus ball height, right? And then we just draw Q. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to get rid of this white brush. I don't want to have to manage this brush thing like this. I just want to like a pretty brush thing that I can just say, oh, here's a brush, deal with it. I want something like a smart pointer that you create and you say here's a color, and that internally creates a brush, and then it lives, it's scoped to some like class or struct or whatever, and then when that struct goes out of scope, the brush holder thing goes out of scope and then destroys the handle, right? That's kind of all I want. We can make it a struct just for simplicity's sake, for less typing. I want to call it auto brush, right there. And then the auto brush will just have a handle to a brush, a GDI brush, and I want this thing to be private, and I'll tell you why. I don't want to be able to accidentally override that value, so I want to make it private, right? And then this public thing, this auto brush thing, would take a auto brush, this is the constructor we're defining. The constructor would take a color def. This is a way in Windows of specifying a color. I think it's just a like 32-bit integer that represents the color of the brush. So here's a color def call, We don't store that color if. We just say create solid brush and we pass that color if in there, and that's it. And then in the destructor for this thing, what's it, auto brush. In the destructor we say okay, delete object brush. Oh, and then something fundamental I missed. Brush equals create solid brush, right? So now we have a handle to this thing, but we need to be able to share that handle with Windows, and we just do a hbrush get const return brush, returns a const brush, right? So now we have a way of saying create a brush and then forget about it, get on the handle, and then when the parent object goes out of scope, or when this object goes out of scope, the brush automatically gets deleted, right? I like this so much. So let's use that thing. So I want this thing called auto brush red brush, because we learned the last time Windows doesn't have a default red brush. It makes sense. This was made back in the day when there wasn't really that much resources, when you had to install Windows on like a stack of stiffy disks. For the young kids, stiffy disks are like, they look like 3D printed save icons. They were like yay big. They had 1.4 megabytes of storage on them. They were like pathetically low density, whereas these days you can have like one of these puppies, this like little terabyte drive, right? A stack of stiffies like this, I wouldn't even get you 2 MP3s worth of storage, or I call it, or two flags worth of storage. A decent flag would run you about 24 megabytes for like a proper listening experience. But again, I tangent. Let's just say the red brush. So the way you define a color if in Windows is with this Rgb macro, right? That Rgb macro just does a bunch of bit shifting. You can see this weird thing. It just casts it to like D word, which is actually unsigned int, if I'm not mistaken. And then it says it is a byte, which is a unsigned char for R. So it sticks R down there. And then it does a byte, a word of a byte G. So it says G is a byte, expanded to a word, and then shifted left by 8 bits. So it does R and then G, and then it always in another word that is shifted left by so many bits, and then it combines all that into an int. So it's got like, in this integer, it's got like 8 bits worth of red, 8 bits worth of green, 8 bits worth of blue. That's all that macro is trying to do. You can see it does like left shift 8, and then it takes the whole word left shift 16, and then it ors it in, which is just a binary plus. It's weird, but anyways, we're defining the color spaces. This Rgb macro expects your values to be bytes, which is unsigned char. Unsigned char range goes from 0 to, what's it, 255. If it was a signed char, it would go from minus 127 to plus 127, but we make it unsigned, so it doubles the range, it extends it. So to get full R is 255, which is the highest extent of the unsigned char can go. G is 0 and B is 0, right? Because if you want red, you don't want green and blue in there. Get out green, get out blue. No, don't get out blue. My green screen is actually blue. My green screen is a blue blanket. So let's just get back to it. So when we draw the paddle and the ball, we can no longer say get me the stock object for this white brush, because we just used it to test, because gray brush was giving us headaches. We now say red brush dot get. Should I call it get handle, or should I just call it get? Doesn't matter what I call it, it's still just going to be a handle to a red brush. Let's see if I didn't totally stuff it up. We should have a static red ball in the center and the paddle at the bottom, and they should be in red. It's not even close to red. So what's up with this? Did I define this correctly? Yes, there's my red brush. Did my red brush go out of scope? Let's see if it went out the scope. Why would it go out the scope though? Let's see. Nope, didn't go out the scope. Let's see if it's being created correctly. Ah, there. Brush equals create solid brush call. Rgb. So there's brush. And now I want to draw this thing. There's nothing special about create solid brush. Create solid brush did a thing. It gave me a brush. That brush looks like a brush. And now we say get. And we draw into this DC with this red brush thing, and everyone's happy, right? Yeah. So why is this like this? Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but this thing has been giving us issues since like way back, like way back. And I don't know if it's this, right? So let's think about it. You get the DC to this window thing. Let's just do 255 32 32. Let's just see if it's like if it changes anything fundamentally. Honestly, don't think it should change anything, but let's just see if that changes anything fundamental. Yeah, it doesn't change anything fundamental. There's something wrong with this DC, and there's something like really wrong with this DC. So maybe we're not compatible enough towards the DC. So let's see. Create a compatible DC to this HDC. And then bitmap is create a compatible bitmap. Let's try it to this HTC with the width and height, and release the DCH and HTC, and then select object bitmap into DC. I can't think of anything that should cause this, and yet we continuously are struck with these issues. Like, I'm considering just drawing it by plotting pixels manually, and there we go, no more issues. Well, the proportion is wrong, the perspective is wrong. I don't know if you see this, but the perspective is like way off. Also, it's like way too big, like this. Okay, so let's ignore the perspective. Let's assume the perspective is fine. I want to make the size different. I want to say -2 and 4. I just want to get the size roughly right. I think compared to the paddle, I want the ball to be a certain size, right? It's tiny, but you scale it up. There we go. You scale the screen up and it looks fine. Okay, I don't really care too much that it's not exactly square at that size. It's not that bad, right? Okay, so what did we learn? Ladies and gentle people, when you get this HDC and you create a compatible DC, the DC is compatible with that, but this DC doesn't necessarily contain whatever the heck it is that you need at that point. So when you create a compatible bitmap, just create a compatible bitmap to the original DC, the actual thing that sits on the window. This compatible DC you created, it's kind of, it's like a cheap copy. It's not exactly a copy, but it's a cheap copy of it. And I'm assuming that brush org-x and some weird mode or something is just not correctly set inside there. So when you create a compatible bitmap, always create it with pointing to the actual window. It's got all the correct settings. Windows default sets it for you, and you don't have to care. But if you create your own DCs, there's something inside that needs to still be set that we don't have, right? We can go look for it, but I don't feel like making this a 5-hour video. But it just means that there's something inside there that we still need to go set. We saw the last time that you have to go do like set brush org-x, which is just a horrible piece of garbage. It's like 50 different settings and units and whatever, which I don't feel like doing. I'll check this out. You can pass null in there, huh? That's brilliant. When the memory DC is created, it's a 1 monochrome pixel wide and 1 monochrome pixel high. Before you can use it, you must select a bitmap of the correct width and height into the DC. To select a bitmap into the DC, use create compatible bitmap functions. Specifying the height, width, and color organization required. So wait. What is this color organization thing they're talking about? Check, the color format isn't specified. So when you create a compatible bitmap, the color format of the device identified by the HDC parameter is matched. So you can then now create it. But now how do you set the color mode? How do you set the color mode? I want to set the color mode. If the DC is enabled, blah blah blah. How do you set the color mode? I'm super into the idea of changing the color mode. Get DC brush color, get DC or get pen color, device caps. How do you change the color mode? Look at this nonsense. They actually tell you when a memory device context is created, it has a 1x1 monochrome bitmap selected into it. That is a single color bitmap. If this memory device context is used in create compatible bitmap, which is the thing we just did, the bitmap is a black and white bitmap. If you want the color bitmap, you use the original DC. It's the thing we just guessed. We literally just guessed it. So if you say here's a mem DC compatible to the window DC, and you say here's a mem bitmap compatible to the mem DC, it gives you a black and white DC, which is why everything was just whack, right? So if you then say get me a compatible bitmap that's compatible to the window DC, and then select it, and it makes this mem DC not black and white. That is a poor approximation of a correct API. Shame on you, Windows guys. This is literal magic in here. Like, if you don't guess, or if you don't go read that documentation carefully enough, there is no way to know that this is why things don't look right. But we read the documentation, we were smart. We now know that this is why everything was just out of whack the last time. So it wasn't anything to do with brush origins, nothing. It was just to do with the fact that you need to create bitmaps that are compatible to the device context for the window and not for the memory DC. Okay. Oh, this bug is not going to bite me anytime soon if I'm paying attention. Okay, so we got that. We've got our auto brush things. Great. We got a red brush, and now we need to do bounce the ball around again. This update and draw thing. We now have the width and height of the. We don't actually need to care about this. We just need to say update. Right, so this update function is just going to be an internal void update, and all this is going to do is, again, we're going to start by bouncing the ball around. So the ball in JS, we had a thing like a dx and a dy for the ball, right? It was just the delta x and delta y for the ball. So the ball x and y is volatile. It means it keeps changing. The width and height is non-volatile. It is just fixed. So I don't really want to create structures and stuff for this. So dx equals 1, ball.dy equals 1. Oh shoot, I need to actually like define it here. X, y, bold x, bold dy, and then bold with something is not right. Oh, it was right. So all I want to do is I want to say bold dot x plus equals bold dot no, there's no such thing as bold dot. I want to say bold x plus equals bold dx, bold y plus equal bold dy. I wanna just go grab that logic, that weird chunk of logic, how to coding the programs, github.com/how to coding the programs, and then what was the repository? JavaScript. That is my repository that we are building, guys. Go forth and do the thing. Look at it. I just want to grab that log. I really don't feel like typing all that weird stuff again. Like, for super serious, I don't feel like typing any of that again. So I just want to go look at that logic and like see if I can find it somewhere. There's like this big function that did like a whole long complicated thing of moving the ball around. Just want to find that. So there's bold dx and bold, I don't think you guys can see this. There's bold dx and dy. We just like swashbuckled it in there. But now there's like this whole long complicated thing that says, hey, move the ball around, right? Yeah, look at this, look at this, look at this. Find intersecting edge of ball. Yeah, we'll do that later. Actually, let's just copy all this. This is the nice thing about writing your own code initially. Like, we spent a fair amount of time in the JavaScript tutorial just like bashing out this logic, right? Like, for serious. I think we went on like a Ubuntu bashing adventure of note. Thomas and Yera. We went Ubuntu bash. You know when those guys go out in the jungle with machete and they slice like this little tunnel through the brush, the underbrush. That's what we did with that logic. We went in there. We just did like yata logic, and it was insane. Like it was unpleasantly insane, if I could say it that way. But this is the beauty of it. Copy pasting your own code is not bad because we wrote it. We can copy paste it, right? I'm not advocating for copy pasting it, but I'm saying that I can copy paste my code that I wrote. Not even 4 videos ago, I wrote the code, so I'm fine with copy pasting my own code. I don't mind, because it's not a copyright violation. It's not a license violation. This code is open, free, and open source. It is excuse me, I need to actually go in the repository and add a readme file that specifies that the code is public domain. It is basically unlicensed, so you can do with it what you want, right? It's not even GPL. It's just do what you want, copy paste, use it, make money of it. I don't care. I wrote it. I don't care about it. It is like, in my mind, this is literally throwaway code because you can't really do anything with it unless you go and reinvent the entire wheel that I built underneath this code that kind of does all the thing we need. So it's like, it doesn't really get you anywhere, right? So it doesn't really get you anything without doing any of that like serious hoop jumping things, right? I'm just fine replacing all the width and height things, so we don't spend the next 14 hours doing all of this. And then dx and then dy. Okay, this should get us a little bit closer. Oh, my transparent cup is nearly transparently empty. So Now we got a bunch of stuff, a bunch of logic that kind of just does whatever we need. All we need to do is we need to replace a few things here. Right, we don't have any of the supporting infrastructure for handling lives, although we could deal with it. We don't have a reset ball function, we don't have lives and current state and current score. We'll get to that. For now, I just want to rename the variables so that they make sense in the context of what we have, because again, we've covered all this logic. If you want to understand the logic of how we find intersecting edges on update playing field, like, just go watch JavaScript tutorials like video 2 or 3. We start dealing with like is it 2 or 3? It might be 3 or 4, where we start dealing with how do we bounce the ball around on the screen. It's an unpleasant lot of logic. So let's first deal with this player y thing. So wherever we see player.y, that is actually paddle y. Yes. Player h is paddle h. We've renamed things, so obviously the logic doesn't track like spot on, but so wherever you see player x, it's player paddle x, and wherever you see paddle y, we've done paddle x, we've done paddle h, we've done. We need paddle width. Right, so paddle w. Player dot width is actually paddle w. Yes, okay, great. You can see on the right, these errors are becoming fewer. We have becoming of the fewer errors. I told you my English level is spot on. I'm just updating the size a little bit so it's easier to read. I noticed on one of my watch throughs of one of the previous videos that this is actually fairly hard to read if you're watching on a smaller screen size on YouTube. You basically have to full screen it to follow along, so I'm just kind of almost being considerate. Almost. So this inner width thing, right? This is just W, because we know that it's constant. We don't have to care about this inner width nonsense. We just know the width is constant. Inner height again is just height. It's a constant. Okay, there's some logic to move the ball around, right? What is this red line there? Why is it there? It shouldn't be there. Let's just do the thing, see if it bounces around the screen. Just up. It's moving. It's becoming bigger. And it's so slow. It's so slow. I don't like it. Super slow. So what does this indicate? This indicates that our 60 FPS is not the best. Our 30 FPS is not the best thing to aim for. Given that you can do like a stupid amount of calculations on this machine at any given point in time, and it is C++, it's fairly close to the hardware in terms of like raw speed, and we are like pre-building a bunch of stuff. Wouldn't it make more sense to just aim for 60 FPS? It would speed this game up by a factor of 2 exactly. It's just 1, 2, yeah. Humor me, right? Let's go to this timer function. Let's just humor me. Let's go to this timer function and tell it like, hey. How about instead of 33 milliseconds, you get updated every 16 milliseconds, and then that becomes 60 FPS. Let's just see if we can actually do it. If maybe we don't have to use like a high resolution timer. Oh, that does look much better. Okay. Who'd have thunk it? 60 FPS looks good. The nice thing about having this thing scaling nicely like this is that fundamentally there's no big difference in how all of this works. It should just continue doing this until whatever, right? So I'm happy. We got ball rolling logic in like few minutes, and I'm assuming that the only time we'll ever have issues is when we start handling events and we start caring about colors. Previously in previously in JavaScript we were able to say, hey, you know, like the color of this thing is just like whatever color. But here there's no such thing as a whatever color. We have to like make provision for these colors, and if we don't make provision for these colors, then we are being unfair towards ourselves. This thing is now never going to hit the pad. It's like you never see that logic hit. We're going to be unfair towards ourselves. So I think what we need to do is first just take a look at we've got a few minutes before this becomes unnecessarily long. I just want to think of what is the next logical thing to do here. Nope, it's not gonna hit the thing. There's a scene in the office where they kind of watch this thing like trying to hit the corner of the screen, like right there in the top right corner. It's on the DVD. It's a screensaver for the DVD on the screen in the conference room in the office. They like wait for it to hit the corner. I also used to do that. My dad had a DVD player that was hooked up to the TV screen, and I also used to always just watch and wait for it. I think the way this ball is updating, because we're not using random dx and dy, I don't think this is actually going to hit the paddle at any point. I think it's just going to go in a predefined pattern until you change the point where it hits by what would you do? You move the paddle around and it changes the point where it hits. It moves the hit point up in the y-axis a little bit. So I don't think this is actually going to hit. So instead of just staring at it waiting for it, let's go and put down. Oh, you know, it's nice. We can port this code almost verbatim out of JS into here. And I think the only thing that I want is to put in that state machine that says wait for a click. I'm a bit skeptical about how to handle the click so far. How would we handle the click? Let's see how we'd handle the click. How would you pass information into a simulation? You'd pass an event into it. You would have a... I want to say you would have a queue of events, right? And you'd fill up that queue of events, and then you'd drain that queue of events on the other end. So you'd have a stack or a queue or a deck. Does the std namespace have a queue? Let's just do this std query. Std queue has an existence. Sequence container, this is exactly what I want. Oh yeah, for 5 structure. So what do you do? Push and pop on the queue. Oh, there we go. So the first thing I want is I obviously want to be able to respond to mouse movement events, and I want it to be a little bit of a delay. This is sequential code, I think. So there is the potential that Windows queues up, if you do this, there's the potential that Windows queues up a bunch of messages, mouse move messages that are, there's a word for it, like interrupted or preempted by the drawing function, and then the queue on Windows side is only partially drained as it sticks a bunch of mouse move messages in. The queue is only partially drained, and you then draw a frame, and then there's more things you need to process in the queue, and then you draw the next frame. I want to be able to process those things, but I don't necessarily want to process everything. I just want to say, actually, we don't need a queue. Yeah, I want to know that the time I draw this thing, I want to know that the user clicked. That's all I want to know. I want to be able to say someone has clicked, and that's it. Then I don't care about it anymore, because each click is unique. It counts for something. So I just want to know the user has clicked, and that's it. And then also I just want to know what is the current position of the mouse. I don't actually need to know each position. Again, excuse me, we are not doing a full-on physics simulation. We're not doing that hardcore like box 2D update step thing. So all I want to know is, did the user click, right? I'm going to cheat. When you click it, the Windows sends you a WM mouse down, and then you handle WM mouse down to say this is where the user put their mouse down, and then the user moves within a certain amount of space, and then you get a WM mouse up, and then it counts as a click. I think double clicks work the same way. I don't care about that. So case WM click. No, that's not how clicks work. Double clicks work like that. So if you do double click, yeah, L button double click. That is how that works. So if you tick, if it's within a certain space, there's a little box that you double click. If you do that and then move and then click again, it doesn't count as a double click. And there's also a certain amount of time. There's a double click time. So you can't say like in the fam, you can't say double click, double click. You can't do that. You're gonna handle it nicely. So I don't think I want to change the way the interface works. I want people to transition from the JavaScript tutorial into the C++ tutorial. So I just want to handle WM L button up. That's it. I don't care if you sit with the button down and then move it around and come back and then lift the button. That counts to me as a click, right? So WM L button up and break. All I want to do is set a flag. This is where it becomes important to worry about these global variables. I'm just going to make a little structure that represents the mouse, and all I need to know about the mouse is the state of the left button and the X and Y coordinates, right? So all I care is, if I go inside namespace game, I do struct mouse. I just need a bool clicked. I need a, it could be an unsigned short, but if you've got like this massive multiple monitor setup on a like 15 4K screens and 65,536 pixels, it might actually be too small, especially in the new 8K screen. So I'm going to do an unsigned should it be unsigned? Yes, relative to a bitmap, your mouse position in your client area, your mouse position will always be a signed value. So let's just do an unsigned. It'll always be positive. You can't, your mouse position can't go negative inside of your client area, if I'm not mistaken. Windows gurus scream at me. Unsigned int x, unsigned int y. That gives us, and then just do this. Just initialize this mouse click thing. Click false x0 y0. That should give us a mouse thing, right? So these are all public. The way a struct works is everything inside a struct is public. I just want to say, when I construct this thing, it's got some default sane values in here, because this could just be filled with garbage, which is very big numbers, which doesn't help us at all with tracking. So shoot, I just want to save this, and then here I want to say I have a game mouse. That's all I want. I also, just for the sake of my own sanity, I want to move this. This is a supplementary structure that helps us understand some fundamental state of our game or our simulation. So I want to stick it at the top of the file so that I don't have to declare it here or play a guessing game with the compiler, because it's all in the same file. The compiler should know about it, but it's a header file. It's a single compilation unit. It's not like it gets copied in here and then used. So I want to be able to say inside here, you know, update intro blah 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 mouse reference m, right? And then this update function takes m, which is a mouse reference, right? Mouse reference m. So now we know if the mouse is clicked. We also now know if the paddle should move. We'll handle that code now about if the paddle should move. Let's just worry about this mouse thing. So if you get a mouse up event in the event loop, it means the mouse was down, and the mouse is now up, which means mouse.click equals equals true. I want to add a function here inside this thing that says consume event or get and clear clicked. And I'll tell you why. I don't want to just modify this outside. I want to say bool get and clear clicked, right? And all that does, it says bool clicked, no, bool c equals clicked equals false, return c. So inside it just gets it and says, hey, whether you were clicked or not, clear that flag. So the next time the user comes in and clicks, the moment we consume the click event, it's gone. We forget about it, right? So I'm assuming we'll just handle this update here. This update thing will just, like, if the game state is something different, then clicked will start the game, something. But bool mouse click equals m dot get and clear click. That's how we get that, right? We're not going to use mouse clicked right now, but that's how you get it. So we have a way to get the mouse clicked, and more importantly, case wm mouse move gets us a way to go and fiddle with these things, right? So I don't know what's in this mouse move. I know that we're going to use the w param and the al param for something, but I don't know what. So let's go check it. The w param and the al param are probably going to have, like, the low word is going to have the x and the high word is going to have the y. I've seen this API enough to know that Windows is going to do something weird like that, right? Oh, so w param contains information about v keys, right? It's going to tell you if you hold the control or the left mouse button or the middle mouse button or the right mouse button or the shift button, or things are down. And then the al param contains the coordinate, and this is important. This is relative to the upper left corner of the client area. The client area is larger than our simulation area, so we need to then scale the coordinates down. Yes, otherwise we're going to have, like, weird results. So we need to then scale these coordinates to get them into simulation space. I'm just going to call it simulation space. We need to do a transformation on these coordinates because they are whatever the size of the al param, screw it, I'm reading this thing, whatever the size of the client area is, and the client area is obviously larger or the same size as our simulation space, right? We'll call it like world space. So we need to do something special. So let's just, get x al param. Is that a real thing? Is that a macro I can just access? Mouse dot x equals get x al param. Yeah, so it's a I know we can use low word and high word, so let's just see what is it. What is this weirdness? Is a header file windows.x.h. Low word is x coordinate, so we can just use low word and high word. So we can just use this macro here, low word al param, right? That should work. Yeah, there we go. Low word and high word, easy. Mouse dot y equals high word al param, and great. Now we know the mouse x and y coordinates, and we can be happy. So we can move the mouse around and be notified of it, or keep track of it, and then move the mouse, click the mouse button, and then still also understand this value. So this changes kind of fundamentally the way that the mouse coordinate works. So this rect now, and this is something interesting. We now have a, sorry about that, we now have a width and a height. I'm not going to go too much longer, but we have a width and a height, and that width and that height tells us the size of the client area compared. We can then compare to the width and height of our simulation, and that'll give us a scale, and then we multiply that scale by the mouse coordinates to get us the mouse coordinates in our simulation space, and then with that simulation space mouse coordinates we can then go and do stuff. So let's just power through. I want to scale these mouse coordinates before I update. Right, so I'm just going to put this function inside the mouse, right? M.scale coords according to the rc.right and rc.bottom. This max is not actually required, but let's just use the same let's just use the same formula, although it really isn't required, like it honestly isn't required. So let's just use that same. So here's the scale coords func that we'll define now. We'll see what it does, and then we update. Right, so the scale coords and then update. Let's just move update to a line on its own so it's clear that we see what it does. And then scale coords just takes a width and a height, and then we'll do some like a void scale coords just takes an int width and int height. Right, that's all that does. So what we want to know is how much bigger or smaller is this thing than the simulation width, right? So what we then need is we need to pass in the simulation width that we're scaling against. So I want to be able to like copy paste this mouse class thing into a different project or whatever. So I'd like to make it what did I do? I'd like to make it kind of not generic but slightly reusable, very slightly. So I just want to pass in my this width and height and then a different width and height, and then inside scale coords I'll pass in int w1, int h1, then w2, h2. Right, so my scale needs to go in the direction of w1 and h1. So I need to do float scale scale x equals static cost float w1 divided by static cost float w2, and in float scale y equals static cost float h1 divided by static cost float h2, and then I want to do x equals static cost unsigned int of static cost float x times scale x and then the same thing for y. So basically all that does is it says, hey, figure out the relationship between these two, stored in here. It's going to be greater than or smaller than 1, right? And take that greater than or smaller than 1 and multiply it by this mouse coordinate. So it'll either make it bigger or smaller. That's all I want out of it. That's a very succinct way of dealing with this weirdness. Okay, great. So x is static cost unsigned int, blah blah blah. So hopefully that all just works. So later down the line when we say, hey, you know, is this whatever, we now have the potential to rip out, before it becomes too late, we now have the potential to rip out the thing that handles the mouse movement thing. Yeah, handle mouse move, right? So here it does scale and it does width is client x. Yeah, we're doing the scale thing, right? Inner width over top width. So what we do is we save x is greater than width and x is less than inner width minus width player x is. Okay, so I'm going to do something much simpler. Like this tracks 1 to 1. So if you move the cursor quickly, it moves the cursor quickly. I want this to be a little bit of a challenge, so I want to say, okay, if m dot x is less than paddle x plus paddle width divided by 2, if the mouse x is less than this paddle x minus the paddle minus half the paddle width, so the midpoint of the paddle, then the paddle must move left, right? So we say if paddle x is greater than 0, minus paddle x, right? Else if greater than, again my IDE just decides, like randomly it wants to decide for me what my coding style is. So if paddle x plus paddle width is less than width, I just want to parenthesize this to show to the guy reading it next, which is me. If then plus paddle x, that should track fairly slowly, but that then should handle at different screen sizes. If I move this thing slightly to the left of the panel, oh, that's unfortunate. Check operator precedence. Up, yeah, plus sorry, I think I just stuffed up the way the shift goes. Update in draw does not take 2 arguments. What does it take? Update in draw. Oh yeah, mouse, right? I want to be able to, oh there we go. Well, that's unfortunate. We can actually go and see what the heck is going on there. Inside here where we do the scale thing, yeah, we go. So scale x is w is 320, w2 is 624. Is that really the size? Okay, well, even 624. So 320 divided by 624 is roughly half. Same thing with height, and that height is in roughly half. So now I say x equal, oh, how is x 0? Plot x times scale x. Am I not handling the mouse move coordinates correctly? Let's just see what that does. Okay, so this is going to continue to scale. So now we do that. Oops, we do this. Now mouse.x equal 619 and 288. I see what's happening. Every time we scale this thing, it's gonna do that. So what we need inside this mouse object, so is we need an x and a y, but then we need unsigned int scaled x and unsigned int scaled y. We cannot keep calculating and assigning to the same value. This should be scaled x and scaled y. Simple as that. If we keep assigning to the same value, we'll have 619 divided by 2 is 3 somewhat, and then the next frame we come in, that value is still 3 somewhat, and then it's going to divide it again and again and again. So that way, every time we move the mouse, it'll just divide that value smaller and smaller. So we need to store it in temporary variables. The temporary variables are these things. So we'll just assign something to them. So don't necessarily need to assign something to them because we're assigning something right here before we try and access them. But let's just, for sanity's sake, make sure that it's sanitized. Sx is 0 and sy is 0. So then what we do is when we actually go and use them, it's m.sx and m.sx. That should give us a consistent value. Every time you move the mouse, it will just keep that value because it works off the original and it scales it and it splits it into a different value. Oh, mouse move, that value was 0. Let's see what it is now. So, oh, shoot. There we go. Nice and easy, but this is slow as heck. It's a little bit frustrating. I like this. It's like the most frustrating game ever. Oh, the bounce is working. So for now, that's fine. I think maybe I want to do +2, -2. It is like fairly frustrating working like this. Oh yeah, check, there's potential to miss it. I like this. You need to be accurate then with the mouse, but I want to make it +2, -2 if we move this thing around. So paddle.x minus equal 2 pixels greater than 0, yeah, or whatever, and then paddle x plus equal 2 pixels. Let's just run that. I think I'm happy with where we're at today. Next video will oh yeah, much more performant, right? Boom. Yeah, check it. This is lovely. Oh yeah, this gives you a this makes it a little bit harder to play. I like this. We need to put a little epsilon value, a little delta value in there, yeah, so it doesn't jitter like this. But I'm super happy with this. I'm super happy. So we now have a fairly slow paddle. I love this so much, right? I love this so much. Okay, so next video we'll do state management, I think. Let's just see. Let's jet status jet add cpp blocks cpp jet add cpp blocks h jet status jet commit handle mouse movement jet push origin master. Is it gonna work? Maybe not. I had some headache with this like a while back. I had like massive headaches with this. Massive headaches. So what did I do to get it to work? Oh, should manage to switch how to coding the programs, but now it's already busted. Ugh. Jet push origin master. It's already broken. It's just not gonna work. You know, every single I'm hating this so much. Every single time I try and push a change here, right, then it just fights me. So I think the easy way is if I just go here. Where am I signed in as here? That guy. I want to sign in as some other guy, right? Jet is login. Okay, so for all your websites doing this, I'm going to tell you one time, right? Don't make sign up your defaults, because you now antagonize people who are how to coding the programs. You are antagonizing people who already signed up for your service. You're significantly antagonizing them, like so much. CPP. like significantly. So CP block CPP. I want to edit this file because screw chitup dot the command line. It fights you if you are logged in as a different person and you've gone and done something. It just completely fights you. Like, I hate having to fight with this. Let's just paste over this thing. Screw it. Commit. Like literally screw this thing. It fights you if you are signed in to a different account. And if you forget to switch, then there's no easy way to take ownership of that commit. So this is what I'm resorting to. So guys, whoever builds this currently, Mr. Torvalds, you know, you've got some amazing tech here, but my word, if I want to have multiple users, I just want to say, you know I committed it under that username, but just let me push this thing because I'm the guy. I own this repository. I switch to myself. Let me just push this thing. It just tells me no, nope, 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 you can't. All right, it just says like no. There's just no way. So guys, here you go. I've now committed all this code changes that we've made. I hate having to do it this way. It's literally, it grinds my gears, and I think I'll figure out a better way to do this, but for now this is just gonna have to be how it is. Sad panda. And I think that concludes our, no, that doesn't conclude our journey for today. Hey, get off the just do jet status. Check this nonsense. Upstream is now currently totally gone. Anyways, this concludes our video here with the pretty stars in the background. I always want you to end up with the pretty stars in the background. I'm super happy with the pretty stars. All right, cheers everyone, stay safe.